Welcome to this special video in which we will be talking about the future of Visual Studio with a very esteemed guest who is Mads Kristensen from Microsoft. He is a principal product manager of Visual Studio. And even though I think nobody needs him to introduce himself because everybody in the .NET space knows him, I will still let him to introduce himself and tell us a little bit about what he's doing in the Visual Studio team.
All right, thank you, Martin. Yes, hello, everybody. My name is Mads Kristensen, and I work on the Visual Studio team. I used to be on the .NET team, too. So I got a lot of history with .NET and Visual Studio, and was using Visual Studio for 10 years as a developer, before I joined Microsoft to work on Visual Studio. So I've been with .NET and Visual Studio now for 25 years. And so it's a long relationship, and it's going strong. And Visual Studio is one of those things where it's been my second home for 25 years. Right, I spend so much of my time. Like I used to usually say that if you're using Visual Studio for 8 hours, 10 hours a day, like that's half your waking lives. And so that's a long time to spend in like one app, right? But that's just the reality for a lot of people. And I'm one of those, and I love it.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, there's such a long history, and it feels kind of nostalgic to think that many of us have been using Visual Studio for such a long time, and it has been evolving this fast and in this amazing direction. It's great to be part of it, and I think that I can thank you, not just you, but also the whole Visual Studio team for everything you're doing, because you're making .NET and Visual Studio amazing. That's just something that resonates with every single .NET developer. So thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. It's a privilege to be able to do that. So, and we love what we're doing, and it's fun to see Visual Studio evolve and get better and better and better over time. And we're going to talk about the very latest version of Visual Studio here today. So that makes me very excited, because it's something that we've been planning and working on for a long time. So now we can finally talk about it, and it's always exciting.
Yeah, it is definitely exciting, because it's not every day you get a new major version of Visual Studio. So let's talk about this new version, which is called Visual Studio 2026. So we're kind of already in the future, right?
Yeah, we're already in the future, but we were in the future the same way when we launched Visual Studio 2022, because it was in November of 2021 that was released. So 4 years ago. So we've been with 2022 for 4 years, and in those 4 years, a lot of things have happened. We have had 14 updates, plus in this summer we made the change. Instead of doing updates every quarter, we now do it every month. So we've had, what is that, 3, almost 4 updates. So 14 updates plus 4 has come out to 2022, right? So it's like, even though it sounds old, it sounds like it's 4 years old just in the name. It has 2022 in it. It is very up to date. It is constantly evolving and moving with the world and AI and developer practices and technologies and whatnot, right? So it's very modern, even though the name may be, some people thinking it's old. So that's how it is.
Yeah, but it's pretty impressive, because I know that from my line of work, I mean, keeping updates coming regularly, it's not easy. And it's pretty impressive how fast you are taking new versions of Visual Studio, making them public, even with the previews as well, getting that new latest bits to developers as fast as possible. And with such a stability, it's pretty impressive and pretty astonishing, because it's hard to keep that stability going. And for something that really needs the stability for developers, it's pretty hard to do. So it's
I have a lot of respect for the team, like that they're able to do that. We actually, at any point in time, we ship Visual Studio about 3 to 4 times per week. So and that's because we have our feature updates, which now is per month. Every month there's a new feature update. But we also have like security updates to maybe older versions of Visual Studio 2019 or something like that. And so we ship these service releases about, so 3 to 4 times a week we have a release. And so but not all these releases will affect you. You won't get a notification, hey, there's an update for you. It's for all the different SKUs we got. We got the Community, Pro, and Enterprise, but we also have build tools and the test platform and other SKUs of Visual Studio. And so when you think about, like, it's one of the, if not the biggest app in the world. We don't know for sure, but we think there's about 200 million lines of code in Visual Studio. We can ship that almost at the speed of web, right?
That's
or we can just
impressive.
publish out a new. It's absolutely incredible, and the amount of infrastructure work that has gone into making that possible is, like, it's amazing. Tip of the hat to that team. That's that's really impressive. Yeah.
And if I may ask, what's the size of the team that's working on Visual Studio? Because that's kind of something that I don't know, and would be interesting to learn, because such a huge project, it must be a massive effort.
It is not as big as one might think. Some people think that we're thousands of people, and we're definitely not. I think it's a fluent number, so I can't tell you we are exactly 174 people.
Right.
We are probably around 150 ish. But it changes. It's not a static thing, because we might have a team that works in Azure, and they what I usually use as my example is, when Azure started to adopt this new language called Bicep, that was going to take over the ARM templates. Now, this Bicep needed tooling, and you need to be able to, have language support for this new language. And so, so they spent, some of their developers spent some time in Visual Studio in the code base to provide language support for Bicep files. Now, does that mean they're part of Visual Studio? Well, for that month or those 2 months or whatever it was, yeah, kind of. And the same with the Teams toolkit. You can create extensions for Teams or apps for Microsoft Teams using Visual Studio, and there are templates and all sorts of things that makes that super easy in Visual Studio. Does that mean that those developers working in the Teams toolkit, they were part of Visual Studio while they did that work? Maybe, right? So that's what I mean is fluent. So people kind of move around where they're needed and stuff, which is great that you have that flexibility. So I think we're probably somewhere around that, maybe 150 up to 200, maybe it's in that range. It's a guess. That's the best I can do.
Yeah, but still pretty impressive. I think this also helps with kind of the dog fooding of new features, and because when people come and go to the team and learn to contribute to the platform, that also means that they are kind of are able to see new things, new issues maybe that you are not able to see because you're working on it daily, right?
Right. Dog fooding is very, very important to us. So when you see a preview come up, we've used that preview internally for months. And it's kind of interesting. It's super important because we catch a bunch of issues. We catch real world scenarios by using these products early on ourselves. And so, but we do that with all our products, whether it's Office or Windows or Visual Studio or whatever it might be. And we do it quite aggressively. So if you have an internal build of Visual Studio, you're being prompted every day. Oh, there's a new build of today. Get the latest. And after a week, it gets really annoying. You get like big banners, and we really make it uncomfortable not to get the latest, because we want you to be on the latest where we fix the bugs that you reported, or we get closer to a public release of something. And so we can see on our data that shows our reliability, like how many hangs or crashes Visual Studio does. We can see over the past few years, we've gone down, like the trend. Actually, I'm going to do it, mirrored here. It's gone down significantly. It's now only a third of what it used to be, the crashes and hangs, just for a few years ago. And so having that aggressive internal dogfooding, and then kind of a public preview, and then we have the actual release, right? We go through so much testing through that real world scenarios. And so that's why the stability is so good. And you might not think, hey, Visual Studio is not the most stable thing in the world. And that is true for an individual, because not a single solution is the same. Everything is different. Some are large, some are big, some use .NET Framework, some use C++, some use .NET Core, some use a mix of this and that, and WinForms and web and, Azure Functions projects. The list goes on and on and on. And so everyone is different. Everyone has a different experience, which makes it really, really hard to actually work on some of these problems, right?
Yeah.
But we can tell from our telemetry that we simply get fewer hangs, we get fewer crashes than we used to. So we know reliability is getting better across the board, and that's very satisfying, very, very gratifying as well to know that, because we put a lot of work into it. So yeah, your mileage will vary, but in general, it's getting better and better and better.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, because even from my personal experience, I see it becoming even more stable than before. And one important thing that many people forget is that sending feedback is important. And every time you get a hang or get an issue, when you report it, it will get fixed, but you have to report it. So that's
Right.
something that everyone should be doing, because it helps get Visual Studio better and better all the time. So
yeah. And when we look back in the past 12 months, and look back at the amount of user reported feedback we've gotten, so whether it's bug reports or feature requests, when it comes to bug reports, we fix 18 user reported bugs every single workday. 18.
that's amazing.
And we implement 1.2 feature requests every single workday in the past 12 months. And the trend is going up. It's not flatlining. It's not like, oh, that was just this past year. No, it's trending up. We're doing more and more of that. And that doesn't mean there's more and more bugs. It means that we're more focused more focused on users in general, on listening and understanding the impact even small things have, which it's a very hard thing to wrap your head around if you have an app that's as big as Visual Studio is. That when you have a bug somewhere, it can be hard to understand the impact relative to other bugs. Right. Because it can be a very small little thing. But if you do that thing 10 times a day, every day, 5 days a week kind of thing, it becomes a big thing. So how does that rank in priority against something else that might seem like it has a higher impact on people's, happiness or productivity or something? And I think we're starting to learn that small things matter a lot because of the nature of, like, the paper cut, like death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Right.
And so that's a shift that you might have noticed it in the past 2-3 years. But that's why it's trending upwards. We're simply just changing our focus more to these things, and that's great. I love that. So
yeah,
keep the
definitely.
feedback.
Yeah, because when you're working on something daily and you hit a specific issue repeatedly, that hurts you the most, right? And removing the paper cuts, that just helps everyone, right? So
yeah,
it's good to see that focus, because many times people maybe prefer the bug fixes or the paper cuts to be fixed instead of getting new features, because that just helps their productivity overall. So it's very cool to hear that you are fixing that many issues every single day. It's just mind-blowing, pretty much.
Yeah, it's very impressive. The team is really, really keen on this, and it's I think it's about this difference between developer productivity and developer happiness. And I think we've always traditionally been a productivity tool. That's what an IDE is. It's like, how do you make developers as productive as possible? Like, you get everything in the box. You can just go do your thing, run your tests, integrate it with the cloud. Everything is there in front of you, and it's about productivity. And that was the focus for so long. And I think our stated mission is, the Visual Studio stated mission is to create the most lovable developer experiences for C++ and C# developers, .NET. And so talking about a pure productivity seems lacking. And so that's why I kind of like the idea of talking about happiness, like developer happiness. It's not like we invented the term developer happiness, right? Or it's like a groundbreaking thing, but it's more like a recognition that productivity is part of the puzzle. It is not the end all be all. And but you can't be happy without being productive. So happiness includes productivity, but it's also those little things that they're little paper cuts. They're, hey, you want more color themes, you want to personalize things. And you know what I was saying in the beginning with Visual Studio being kind of our second home as developers, it matters what color you got on your walls, right? What rugs, and you know, have hardwoods or do you have carpet in your house? That, you know, that matters to you in your house, but it also matters to you in your second home Visual Studio. And so those little things, again, they become bigger things. And so realizing that's something that just puts a smile on people's faces. It is not something that opens up new scenarios, that lets them use new technologies that take them into the future, and you know, so on and so forth. It focuses on the smile, on that you wake up in the morning and you're thinking, I can't wait. I can't wait. I yearn to solve problems for my company, my business, my team using Visual Studio. Right? That's your like that sort of motivation that you get up in the morning and you're just excited.
Yeah.
You're empowered, you can do anything you want, you know, watch this world, like see what I'm about to do, right? And you get into it. And so that feeling of empowerment, inspiration, creativity, you know, that's what it's all about. And so sometimes that means build a feature just to put a smile on people's faces, not for anything else. And that's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that how you'd explain that, and it sounds like the goal is kind of to make the tool disappear in the background and keep you in the flow in whatever you are focused on, and as long as it doesn't prevent you from doing what you want, that's the perfect scenario, right? It kind of
The tool is there to use however makes you happy to use it. For some people, it is exactly what you're saying. It is, hey, stay in the background. I got this. I'm in the driver's seat. Don't interfere with my productivity, my happiness, right? I'm the happiest when it disappears into the background. Then you have other users. They're like, hey, I want you to suggest all these things I can do to improve my code quality or to code faster, or you know, take advantage of like a Copilot auto suggestion thing that fills in whole methods for me, or whatever it might be, right? And then so you have a spectrum of like, again, just like every solution is different, so is every user. And so we all fall onto like this spectrum, and it might not even be a linear thing. It could be like a 3D, 4D kind of space that we work around in. But all that to say, because we're also different, Visual Studio has to cater to all these different ways of working. And that is also a complexity that's I don't think shared by that many apps, nor is it appreciated by a lot of developers. We get a lot of people saying, hey, can you just do this? How hard is this? Or I've opened this bug like a year ago. Why is it still not fixed? And you know, it's because it's more complicated than that. And it's funny because developers know that that's always the case. Like they have bugs in their bug system that are really old, that there are reasons to why you can't just fix. Yet they tell us, hey, why don't you just fix it? And you know as well as the next person, like you can't, if you tell a developer, hey, how hard can it be? Just fix it. Like they don't like that.
right.
You know, so it's funny that we actually do get quite a bit of that, but it just shows that people are very passionate. So whenever someone reports a bug to us, small or big, it doesn't matter. Like we see it as a present. It's like a, you know, you're receiving a gift from someone who cares deeply. Like if you didn't care about Visual Studio, why would you spend time opening a bug report and upload stack traces and log files and stuff?
Yeah,
you wouldn't. You would just simply walk away and buy another product. So it's important that we always remember that all that feedback that comes in, it's a present. It's something to be grateful for. Even though a bug is never really a happy thing, you know, that doesn't change the fact that it's a present, it's a gift, and we need to treat it with respect. And as a gift, we say thank you, and we do our best to fix it, right? And sometimes that's easy and quick, and sometimes it's hard or almost impossible, or it runs contrary to the direction we're taking Visual Studio, right? So it's like, if you want to fix over here, but we're on this trajectory, it's like, sorry, this is out of scope. So we have that option to say closing something as out of scope, which is like a common thing. I think most people have that, but that's kind of how it is, right? So But we're very happy with those. So yeah, keep the feedback coming. It makes Visual Studio better. And I don't know. Have you noticed something in the last 2-3 years with Visual Studio? Like, is it apparent that we're starting to look at this in a deeper way?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I have reported quite a lot of feedback. I mean, both feature requests and bug reports. And I mean, most of it was solved very quickly. Some of the things kept stay there for a while, but they will ultimately resolved as well. I don't think there is anything that I have now like outstanding that I have a problem with. And even in terms of like performance, for example, because we're in Uno platform where we have a quite huge solution which took a long time to load previously. Over time it just improved, and now it's kind of snappy, and you open the solution and it's there almost immediately. And it's just impressive how much it improved even during 2024 version. During those service releases, it just improved over time. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Oh, that's great to hear. And so and you've tried that in 2026 as well in the latest, because you've had access a little longer than
Oh yeah,
it's been public. Yeah.
oh yeah.
We gave so just in full transparency, as part of our dog fooding and get as many people to try it out before we give it to everybody, are the Microsoft MVPs. They got an early access like about a month before everybody else. And so you've had a little bit of a head start using it. And so did you feel a difference in the performance?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's even more smooth than before, even though it before was already smooth. But like it's a sizable difference. Like you can feel it, you can see it, and even though like I don't have any numbers specifically, it feels much faster, and it is much faster. The difference is there and it's visible, and you can feel it during your daily work, because I mean, for myself specifically, I'm switching between multiple instances of Visual Studio and doing multiple things at the same time usually. So this every single bit of performance significantly helps. So now things are much better, and with the new version, which we will be talking about in the next part, I think every single developer will feel the difference.
Yeah. Okay, that's great to hear. We've done a lot of work with performance this time around. I don't remember any time where there's been such a big performance difference between the two major versions that we have between 2022 and 2026. We've been able to go much deeper than ever before in performance explorations. And so you should see faster startup, faster solution load, and faster F5, like compiling. MS Build is faster. Hitting F5, you're going to be able to run your app and hit that breakpoint much faster than you were used to before. And, so a lot of deep performance optimizations have happened here. But there's a whole other aspect, which is we've been able to move a lot of things away from the UI thread. So that's something we've been doing over time as much as we can. That's why you see, if you open Process Explorer, you can see under Dev Env or under Visual Studio, you see all these Service Hub processes running, and they actually run .NET Core, right? So we run a bunch of Visual Studio runs in .NET Core to get that full performance, but it runs out of proc. It doesn't run on the UI thread. So all that stuff that runs there does not block the UI. So it used to be that if you took an action, not every action, but some actions, you click the button, for instance, it would freeze Visual Studio for like a second or half a second or 5 seconds or more sometimes, depending on what it was. And that's because the work that's being done by the processor is being done on the UI thread. That means that the UI can't update. It can't do anything else. It waits till that work is done before it can do anything. So stuff like mouse over stuff, opening context menus, nothing reacts to what you do. So that's called frozen. We think of that as a hang or a frozen state. And that has been significantly reduced. And that's part of why Visual Studio feels so snappy. Like if you open a file, it doesn't like freeze Visual Studio anymore for like a brief moment while it opens and colorizes the programming language. Like if C#, you get the colorization, syntax highlighting, all that stuff. It happens in the background now. So it's like instant. And Visual Studio keeps being responsive. So you'll see that all over. But In this preview 1, the one you've even tried it before, it was called, you tried preview 0.
Yeah.
And here with preview 1, you get that level of performance optimizations that you've witnessed yourself. But it's not done. Like the next preview and the road to the general available version, when we're out of preview and have the final version, like we still know what to do, and we still have more on our to-do list to make it even better. So the journey has just started. This is just the first little tidbit, and it's not like it's done whenever we reach GA. It continues after that. So in the next updates that come out monthly, you'll see better and better and better performance everywhere.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive to hear. I mean, that focus on performance, that helps significantly. I remember in the old days, that's quite a long time ago, exactly what you mentioned, like the freezing when UI thread is busy. The worst case is when it happens when you're typing something and you kind of see those words appear a long time after you stop typing, and that's something that you don't ever see anymore. That's super cool and just makes the experience much better.
Right. And there's a fun thing that some people won't ever notice, but if you're using like a virtual machine, if you run Visual Studio in a VM, if you run it on Microsoft DevBox, or using some sort of RDP, Windows RDP client to connect to a remote machine, whether it's local or not, you're going to see huge latency performance gains as well. So the team has been doing some ridiculously cool work. So I didn't know how this worked, but RDP, so the remote desktop stuff, it will send information to redraw the screen and what parts of the screen whenever you do make an action. So for instance, whenever you edit some text in Visual Studio tells RDP that, hey, this is the area of the screen that needs to be redrawn. And let's say that what you did was you typed a character in the editor in C#. You typed one letter. So that means that only the stuff that's to the right of that letter itself and everything to the right is what changed, but nothing else really updated, right? Well, sometimes that's not true. Sometimes you have parentheses at the bottom that it gets a different color or whatever. Like there could be situations where you need to update more, but in general, that's all you need. You want to tell RDP to update as little as possible. The thing was that that was not optimized. So what we've done a lot of work to make sure that the editor only sends the updated information to the RDP that actually needs updating. And it's quite significant, the amount of optimizations that happened there. And I think they're still working on doing even more. So it's absolutely phenomenal. The latency has gone down drastically. It's great.
Okay. That's good to hear, because many of my colleagues will be happy about this because most of our team is working on RDP machines. So this is something right up their alley, and that's going to improve their performance significantly. So
this is something that came out of the Microsoft DevBox work. We wanted to make Visual Studio the best it can possibly be on DevBox. And so part of that was to overhaul how we think of RDP. And so the side effect is that everyone that uses RDP gets the benefit, not just DevBox.
Perfect. That's pretty cool. Okay, so that is performance of 2026, and I guess there are many more new features. So can you pinpoint some of the most impressive, the most cool things that you...
Yes. Before I show you, I want to talk about one that I unfortunately I can't really demo, but one of the ways we have made Visual Studio faster is something called the Profiler Agent. So part of 2026, you can think of, when we think about all the different features that come into 2026, there's a lot, and they're all over. They're not like concentrated on main things. They're all over the place. But you can think of 2026 partly as a kind of a foundational update where the AI capabilities are built deeper into the core of Visual Studio. Now, that doesn't mean that the way you interact with AI is different, or it's always there, or something like that, in your face type of thing. That's not what it is. It's more like, if you think about what it makes IDE so fantastic, is that it knows everything around your workflow. It knows your test stuff. It knows your debugging. It knows your the code, your code space, your source control. It might even know your CI/CD. It might know your production stuff, like your Azure topology and everything, around you, issue tracker and so on. So the deeper we can go, the more we can include in the AI, in the context that the AI is aware of, the better it can get and the more it can assist you.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we're doing here. We've done so much foundational work to make that a thing. And the first feature that we also then ship that uses this new foundational update, if you will, platform update, is the profiler agent. So we created an agent called the profiler agent. And it's absolutely mind-blowing. It's able to, you can take any app, library, app, API, whatever you're building, and you can run the performance profiler. Or even if you don't, we know that people don't actually use the profiler. It's built into Visual Studio. It's been there for many years. It's in Community Pro and Enterprise. Everyone can use it, but very few do. So now you can ask the Copilot to do it for you. So you can ask it to spin up profile, figure out where the performance issues might be in your app. It will write benchmarks. It will hit those methods again and again, see where your hot paths are. It has to happen at runtime, really, because at runtime is when you know what the code paths are that's being hit, where the hot paths are, what are the most expensive method calls you have, what are the most expensive lines of code and why, and it will call that out. Now, you can do this yourself. Like if you run the profile today, you can get that information too. But as I said, a lot of people don't do that. But even if you did, and you figured out, oh yeah, this line of code is like slow. Well, what are you going to do about it? Do you know how to make it faster? Yeah. Some people do, but I think most people don't, or a lot of people don't. So what's really cool about this profiler agent is that it will come in, it can run all that for you, and it's completely science-based. It doesn't guess or use like best case scenarios or something like that, right? It measures using benchmarks where the hot paths are, figures it out, and then figures out how to improve it. And you're sitting there working with it, and if it suggests, hey, I think for this particular issue that we found in performance, here's what I suggest we do. And if you're thinking that looks, I don't know what that means. It's using unsafe code. What is this unsafe keyword in C#? Like I'm not comfortable with this, right? Or volatile, something like ooh, scary. I don't know what that is. So I don't want it in my code. So either I can, study up on it, which might be a good idea. But maybe can you come up with a different solution that also has a performance benefit? And then we'll do that. Mm-hmm. And so it'll give you a laundry list of things that you want to do. And when you're happy with what it says that it want to do, then you can just say, okay, go, do it.
And that's kind of a cooperative mode, basically.
Yeah, so yeah.
Coming out with a proper solution.
Yeah. But you know what I really like about this type of solution, though, is that there's two things here. One is I'm learning something. I'm learning from the profile that says, hey, don't use that dictionary. Use a hash set instead. Mm-hmm. Or, something. Whatever it is that it might suggest. So that the next time I write code, I remember this and I can do more high-performing code out of the box, out of the gate next time, right? So I learn a bunch of these things as I go along. Secondarily, this was something I could not do before. Like my brain I cannot understand low-level code. I've never done any of that. I have not played around with native stuff or assembler or anything like that in my career. I don't understand. I don't know how it works under the hood. So it can be really hard sometimes to profile. It's like people who use WinDBG when they're debugging, they know what's going on like super far down right, on the metal. But I don't know that. So that door was closed to me. But now the profiler agent opens that door. And it walks through it with me. Not for me, but with me. Right? I learn as we go along too. Mm-hmm. And so I think that empowerment that I was talking about earlier is completely encapsulated here in this scenario. Like I'm able to do something I was only dreaming of. I would never have taken the time to learn about like some of this stuff. I have a family. I need to be home for dinner and stuff like that. I don't have all that time to learn all this stuff. So that door was closed. Now it's open.
Yeah,
And I think
that's amazing.
that's kind of the promise. That's kind of the direction we're headed. And I'm very, very excited. This is by far my favorite feature, by the way.
Hmm.
And I think we're going to have a lot more coming of this type of feature, whether it's AI backed or not. But this idea that what was impossible is now possible, and that empowerment that comes along with it, like that is I, I think that's part of the future. I think we're at a point now where those are the kind of scenarios we're trying to unleash,
Hmm.
and the AI is a big part of that. Not all the solutions might be AI specific, but it comes through this wave of AI. It's a way of thinking about things too. So yeah,
Yeah,
very
it's
excited.
pretty beautiful. Yeah, it's beautiful because it removes the learning curve that backend developers would have to ever get into profiling. It's something that's kind of advanced, and it takes time for you to get there. So now
Yeah,
you kind of can start doing profiling and improving your performance even before you actually learn how to use Profiler yourself. So that's pretty impressive.
yeah. So you can think about the same things with a bunch of other scenarios, like around debugging and unit testing and so on.
Oh yeah.
Like, how often did you accidentally break a unit test and you have no idea why or how to fix it, and it takes you like 2 hours, and you're about to commit the change, send the PR or whatever, and you're like 2 hours later and you're still like banging your head against the wall, like, how do I
Right.
fix this unit test? I don't understand, right? Because it might touch code that you didn't even write or whatever it might be.
Hmm.
And so that's a great scenario as well, where it's like, yeah, let's get those 2 hours back by getting qualified help that can also help us understand better, right?
That's
So
super
it
cool.
teaches us. It doesn't just do for us, it teaches us. Mhm.
Yeah, and just so I know, when you created this feature, how did you train this? Because it seems like a very complex thing, and because it's a complex thing, there is not that much data. How do you approach doing something like this? How do you make this agent actually do something that's valuable for people?
Well, I think the LLM itself just understands a lot of things, but what it doesn't understand is the output of a profiling session, which is like a
Hmm.
DIAC session file, which is this blob of binary, I think. And then so you basically give it the context of, hey, here are the hot paths, here are the issues. You get them all the information that otherwise were siloed away
Hmm. Hmm.
into like a profiler specific thing, and you make it available. And that's what the profile agent helps with. And so now the LLM can come in and help figure it out. Oh, based on this information, here's a way to optimize C# for Windows, or here's the issue with the ARM thing, right? And you're like,
Hmm.
I don't even have ARM. How did you know that? So stuff like that. Um, yeah, so it has to do with understanding the context. Yeah,
Yeah, that's very
that's a
cool.
foundational update I was talking about. Is taking all that stuff and make it
Mhm.
available.
So like
Yeah.
providing all the context that you can from the IDE to LLMs to actually work with. Yeah,
Yes.
that's nice. Okay, that's a very cool new feature. So I can't
Mhm.
wait to try it out. I haven't tried it out, so that's something I have to actually do definitely, especially if
Yeah.
our code base, which has a lot of room for improvements. So yeah, let's try it. Okay, so that's profiling. What else is new in Visual Studio 2026?
Well, let's show the screen here.
Okay, I'll switch you
Um,
to screen
so
sharing.
here I got, yeah, so this is Visual Studio 2026. And this is the theme I like. But check this out. All right, so tools options, right? We see all these themes, all these 11 new themes that I got.
Hmm.
So that's really, really nice. Let's go to options. And what I'm going to do here, let me open this project again, this solution here. So now we see the theme change.
Hmm.
Because if I go into my settings here, I can use my user settings or I can use my solution settings. So solution settings always override my user settings.
Oh yeah.
So now that I do that, you can see that my color theme is spicy red.
Hmm.
But in my user theme, it's the one called cool slate. Okay.
Yeah.
So I can take any setting and I can store it with my solution. And when I open that solution, those settings apply. And it's just, here's a settings file. This is all the settings. These are all the ones that are not the default settings. it only stores in JSON the files that are not the default. So that's my user ones. Here's my solution settings. Just has a single, that's the delta between that's the only one I've set. Yeah. And that just lives in my solution directory, in my repo. And if I check it in, then my whole team will get these settings. Otherwise, it's just for me. So that's really nice.
That is super helpful, because I have usually like 3 forks of the same solution open at the same time. And in that case, it's harder to tell apart which specific fork I'm working on. So if I have a separate settings file for each of those, it's going to be much easier. Like the color,
it's a typical feature request that we've got. It has a lot of votes. People really want visibility, and so you have that now. But not just for themes, where you can have different colors for each of your Visual Studio windows, but other settings, any settings that you'd like, which is really, really nice. So what's cool here is that you can see how it's like this setting. It has like this vertical bar. That means that it's not the default setting. So you can see which ones are default and which ones are not. But up here in filters, you can say only show me the modified settings.
Oh, nice.
And then it filters to that. You see, this is the only setting that I modified in my solution space. And here are all the settings I modified in my user space. So that's kind of cool, right? And I can filter it. Only show me accessibility related settings or performance related settings. And you're going to see a lot more coming into these filters. But that's just very handy. I get these shortcuts to just filter on things that are important to me. So very cool. I love the new settings. Definitely a step up.
Yeah, significant one.
Yeah.
Makes things much easier. And I mean, definitely I can imagine if you work for several customers and each has some specific preferences, then this is something that will make your life so much easier, because you don't have to switch it manually every single time. You will have your settings specific for that specific customer, and it's going to make your life easier.
Yes. So we can use a different theme here. So I like this. This is kind of nice. I don't know if you noticed, but there's a whole new UI layout here. Or not new UI, but Fluent UI. So things look different. It's much cleaner, crispier lines, much more modern look and feel. It's very, very pleasant. It's a great upgrade, and it's this new Fluent UI design language here with new icons as well everywhere. So there's about 4,000 icons in Visual Studio. They all got updated, and I think they are absolutely gorgeous. And this whole new UI, it looks more modern, and as we talked about under, when we talk performance, where we're no longer blocking any UI threads, and everything just kind of happens snappy and everything is responsive. It gives this kind of light feel. It feels lightweight to use, to drag things around, to move things, to open file. I don't know. It just feels smaller, faster. It's just an absolute pleasure to use. And so the new design language is a big part of that. So here's another cool little thing. Check out at the bottom here. It now shows what kind of encoding we got. And so if I click that, I can say, hey, reopen it with a different encoding or save it with a different encoding. So we now have that option right here. And that's something, when you're doing UI, for instance, that's one of those things that like can really mess things up if you don't get it right. And so having it visible down here is very, very helpful. I often do here multi-select, multi-cursor stuff. Now, if you look down here, we see we have 4 selections, and it tells me how many lines. And it tells me how many lines I've got for each selection, and so on. Right, 2 lines, 3 lines. This is just really nice to have this information. Often, I select a list of something, and I want to know, hey, how many lines do I have? And then I'm like, okay, from line 10 to 15, and you do math, right? Or it just says here, there's 6 lines. That's it. So small things, but really, really handy. And if you've used Notepad++ or something else like that, you might have you might find this really useful and have been lacking in Visual Studio for a while. There were extensions that did this, but now it's built in, which is nice. You can even right click here and say, hey, I want to only show me some of this. For instance, here's that file health indicator over here. Or maybe you don't need that because I always have the arrow list open, let's say. Then just hide it away like that. And so you're in control. You control all these things, what's visible and what's not. So again, one of those things that speaks to developer happiness. Nothing groundbreaking here. Nothing. No new scenarios were available, right? Or possible because of this. But it puts a smile on people's faces. The people that come from other editors that had this, and you found this lacking. Well, it's now here. It's not the biggest thing, but it's great. Here's another thing that's like, this might be an even better illustration of what I'm talking about. Check out the line numbers over here. All the way until now, 2026, the line number was much wider, even though there are only 2 digits. So why was the line number margin always much wider before? Now it's only as wide as it needs to be. And so we actually get some vertical space back. It's a little bit hard to explain without you knowing what it used to be. I don't have that showing here. So that little detail, those attention to details, like just really, really nice.
Yeah, it's clear that you are taking kind of small feedback and incorporating into IDE so that people from different backgrounds can be happy and can get all the features they need, which is pretty cool.
Exactly. Same thing with this. We did this like about a year ago. Notice how that's italic. It was actually not possible to do anything italic before, but people really wanted it. So we added, the option that you, for anything, in this case, it's code comments. I prefer it to be italic. You can now add italic. Before you could only do bold. Now you can do italic. You can do strike through. I think you can even do underline. And it's been available. And that's same kind of story, just not specific to 2026. You had this earlier, but that's the same thing where it's like people really wanted something. And you're looking at your code all day, every day. So like it matters that you can make it look exactly the way you want it to look. So that's why we added it.
Yeah. What I like here also, I'm not sure if that I think that's new in 2026 as well, is the highlighting of the currently focused tool window or document window, right? Like that fact that you get that outline around the window that shows you what's currently focused, because that's kind of a good accessibility helper, because you know what your keyboard shortcuts are targeting currently. That's super helpful.
Right. Agreed. And we do have a lot of features here. See, the list is kind of long. There's just so much good stuff in here. So it's fantastic, and it's getting longer. This is preview 1. We're not feature complete yet, so it's gonna grow. But there's so much good stuff. .NET 10, C# 14. You get that here with Visual Studio 2026 as well. So that's super important. So overall, this is like one of those upgrades where there's so much good reason and awesomeness around, but it's spread out in so many different areas that it's not like a couple of huge things. It's a bunch of great things. Oh, I almost forgot to mention. I used to be the extensibility PM.
Yeah.
And under extensions,
how many extensions did you create?
I have over 200, I think. I haven't counted them in a long time. I think I have over 200.
Impressive.
But what's really cool is that we can actually install extensions. This is the first time we've done this for the previous version of Visual Studio. So this is compatible with Visual Studio 2022 extension. So this entire list, these are all 2022. So when I look at these extensions here, you'll see that there are some that says, hey, this extension declares support for older versions of Visual Studio. Right? They might have unexpected behavior. So what it means is that, hey, you can install extensions that only work on 2022 because the author hasn't updated them yet. And Visual Studio will just ask you, hey, are you sure you want to install this into 2026? And you say, yep. and then it will install it into 2026. And the odds are it will just work. It's very backwards compatible, like beyond anything we've ever done. And so I have not heard of any extension that doesn't work or that wasn't easily upgraded. So what's really nice is that you no longer have to wait for your extension author to make everything ready for you by the time you get this first preview. Just go and install it, and all your 2022 extensions will be available to you.
That's perfect.
So yeah, and we're working on getting that automatic. So if you had it, whatever extensions you had installed in 2022, we'll automatically install them as well in 2026 as part of the installation process. So that's coming, just to make it even more seamless. And yeah, this whole idea of upgrading is really great because we can take settings, we can take extensions, we can take the components of Visual Studio that you've selected whatever workloads like ASP.NET and Desktop.NET, let's say. Those are your two. Well, because you did that in 2022, we can pre-select those for 2026 so that you don't have to go through the list. We can kind of just default it to what you had before and then only install those. So this whole like getting up to speed, getting ready to code and getting Visual Studio into a state that's productive and you can start writing code and commit it, like that happens much faster than ever before. So another fantastic thing. There's so many things here. It's like hard to just it's everywhere, really.
But a good thing is that, as you now mentioned, installing this new version sideloaded with other existing stable versions is super easy. So anyone can try it out. Now that it's available, you can try it out without fearing that you will break anything, and you can try it out without having to spend excessive amount of time setting it up and getting it up to speed so that it works with your specific workloads.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
So yeah, super excited for this new release. I hope that your audience will be too. It's a great update.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive, and definitely if you're watching this, please try it out and send any feedback because that helps the team to improve Visual Studio. And I think that there's still quite a while till general availability, right? So there's going to be some time.
We don't have anything released yet. When we think that the quality is there and the features are complete and all that, then we'll ship it in the final state. So keep an eye out.
So there is definitely space for everyone's feedback to be heard. So if you want to see something improved or changed, then it's definitely your own responsibility to report those feedbacks and get your voice heard. So that's nice to hear. Okay, so I thank you very much, Mads, for joining me for this video. It was a lot of your time, so I really appreciate it. And I hope that the release of Visual Studio 2026 will go smoothly as it progresses towards GA. And I just want to wish you the best of luck, and to the rest of the team as well. And we all thank you for everything you're doing for Visual Studio and for the .NET space. It's just amazing to see.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate being on your show. It was a lot of fun, and thank you for the kind words.